think it's very simple. He loves art. I think he had to do a lot of other stuff, but what he really prefers is art.
I think one really interesting thing the Caldor projects do is bring these things that we imagine are kind of mythical or historical or canonized into a context that we can physically understand.
You know, it makes sense to me that he's been able as a patron and a producer and an impresario to execute, 34 pretty large-scale projects over the last 50 years.
Good morning.
Hi, Assad. Hi.
Sorry, harsh lighting over here.
That's all right. We were wondering if we had the right Syed Assad Raza, but we got you. So, on to Project 34, which is very exciting.
Yeah. Starting from the top, have you thought of a title?
Yeah, so far my title is Absorption. Absorption is a topic that came out of art history as well as out of soil health. So it's something that has these two existences.
Sounds very interesting.
It would be interesting to also try to rehabilitate a kind of Australian soil there, And so I feel that one cool idea would be we could try to create a new soil that didn't exist before, but that has a lot of elements from the kind of ancient Australian soil and also has new elements.
I like the idea of the soil. You just planted an idea.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. I put some soil down. Now maybe something can grow out of there.
Yeah.
I think that, let's keep talking about that. But at least it gives us a good topic for the workshop also. That I think if I introduce these ideas to all the other artists, some interesting project ideas could start to come out also.
Where do we get the soil from?
Oh, for sure. I think that's very important. And I personally like the fact that there's something slightly, it's sensitive. It's a sensitive area because who does the soil belong to and who is the original occupant of this land? These are all political questions, but also remember, we're here to construct a world for us to live in and people coming after us, in addition to just paying homage to the people who were before.
One question. At the end of the project, what you aim for, what should be the result of the project?
Hopefully having come together or people to come together around a project.
Yeah.
Rather than looking at the past and making atonement for it or forgetting the past, it's about sharing, to do something that will create conditions for further unfolding into the future.
Very interesting. Very utopian. For him, the process is more interesting than the outcome. How it will turn out, I don't know. But, art is an experiment and one has to accept failure. If you don't accept failure, you won't get things that are interesting. I wanted to bring to Australia, to the Australian public, to the Australian artists, the latest developments of contemporary art. Rather than bringing exhibitions, I wanted to bring the artists so that the artists could interact with the public. Personal connections were made between a place between people, between artists. Well, I got a very mixed identity. If people ask me where I come from, I say Australia. But I still have a Hungarian accent, so what am I? My parents didn't want to stay in Europe after going through the Second World War, and we ended up in Paris, where hundreds of thousands of migrants from all different communist countries finished up. And my mother, who was a very cultured lady, said, okay, I'll make a deal with you. You don't have to go to school, but I want to take you to every museum, every monument in Paris, as we may never come back. I was overwhelmed by the Louvre. But what struck me is the then Museum of Modern Art. They had the Brancusi studio remade in the basement. Very few people looked at it, but I loved it. I went back time and time again. I was fascinated by sculpture, and just something struck.
The Wrap is rapidly becoming a major Sydney sightseeing attraction. Most people have come to confirm their suspicions that Christo is crazy and stay longer than they intended. A little perplexed, perhaps. But Christo is wrapped in his job as a seaside cliff gets a drastic plastic facelift.
That is little drawings. Actually, very, very nice little drawings, very early, and they have already the sample of the fabric, proposed sample of the fabric. This became, the real was much more a beige yellow. I remember we have a friends, before the project was realized, we invite them here. They come to see drawings and to buy, because that time all the project was paid like that. John was very interested, and when he came to New York, he tried to find contact with me.
Because of my interest in art, I convinced this big organization that I worked for, a public company, to sponsor sculpture scholarships for Australian sculptors. And then I wanted to open it up, and I asked my bosses, could I invite somebody from overseas? And they said, well, yes, you can, but don't go above the budget.
We served him some sandwiches for lunch, and he tried to invite us to lecture. My English was very poor. Jean-Claude said, no, we don't like to lecture.
Christo said, no, I don't want to give a lecture or make an exhibition. We would really like you to find a coastline to wrap.
We are so desperately to find coastline, and Australia have the biggest coastline in the world. Please help us to find any area that we can wrap a little section of the coastline.
That I took that seriously literally changed my life.
Tremendous planning. We started on the 12th of February, and the first problem was getting permission, which took a lot of doing, as to ask somebody permission for a piece of coast and have to explain it that you want to package it. And if your hair is long and you've got a Hungarian accent, that's quite a problem.
Well, we have 1,200 yards now.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it as hard. I really just wanted to help Christo and Jean-Claude realize their dream to wrap a piece of Sydney's coastline. But when you're doing it, you don't think about art. You think about, have we got enough fabric? Have we got enough rope? Have we got enough people to help? Can we get sandwiches for lunch for 50 people?
Now, obviously, a great part of this is donated voluntary labor and advice. People such as Mr. Harry Seidler, Mr. Belgiona, whose times are very valuable. Also, the producers of the materials. They are also giving great reductions in the price.
somebody underneath the fabric. Stop now. Okay, stop there, stop. We need to put people together. People who do things and construction jobs and variety of services.
We go down now on the cliff to start the moving.
I don't want anybody hurt, and if you can't do a thing safely, don't do it. Just refuse.
She'll be right.
Yeah, but I mean, you get our friend a bit carried away. You know, we must this and we must that, but you just say no, Meg. That's all.
Major Melville from Australian Army was retired, and he was very ready to do that, a commanding officer of that professional, non-professional people, trucking, services, all kind of things, logistic, enormous logistic work. All our projects have this type of things. They're not done in the art world. They have a lot of similarity of architecture and urban planning.
John and my husband, Harry, we were always friends before the Christo project. John went on to manage the project, during which time he was away for about 6 weeks studying in America, and he gave the project to me to look after. And I was a little nervous. I mean, in those days, you know, international communications was not so easy. It was a big deal to talk to someone on the telephone on the other side of the world. The younger generation of art students and architecture students were happy to go out and help Christo set it all up out at Little Bay.
Eamon Stiller was architectural student at that time, and they was part of the Bronx crew.
Working on the Christo project, in the process I kind of discovered that there was an international avant-garde that Christo belonged to. Being quite a quick learner, I then kind of, embraced the idea and wanted to be a part of it. Yeah, I also became friends with one of the other people working on the project, Ian Millis, who was like a precocious young artist.
In the mood of the thing, as you look at it, has changed. You know, at first it seemed threatening and sort of surrealistic, and now it's just soft and sort of enveloping and beautiful. It's like snow or something like this. It's sure changed my idea of scale of things, if nothing else.
Being an artist consists of somehow or other picking up the straws in the wind. You know, picking up these very slight, low-level wavelengths, which are what in actual fact is happening and what's going to happen, and amplifying them well before everybody else can see them or hear them. They're futurists in a way. They're futurists who, by their existence, can also change what happens.
Where Australian culture was at the end of the 60s, it was really on the brink of going somewhere totally different.
Despite its critics, Christo's scheme is perhaps not entirely absurd. In a world that's becoming obsessed with the idea of packaging, Christo's monoliths could become a legitimate, indeed a popular art form.
The media went off its head about it, you know, and every day during the whole thing there was references to it, and jokes about it, cartoons about it. It was just vilified and laughed at endlessly, and that actually drew big crowds who all went away just in love with it.
There are many, many things make people thinking about this project, and they're all legitimate. Any interpretation, even the most negative, what's Kandoa? People think like that.
You can't see it as a work of art.
No, a work of a madman.
You can't see it being a work of art.
I can't see it being a work of art, no.
What sort of art do you prefer?
Horse racing.
It's probably one of the happiest, craziest, and most wonderful things happened to us. Bloody fantastic, to that effect.
I was political refugee, meaning that when I arrived in Western world, I became a stateless. Coming from communist country with enormous pressure of freedom, I'm absolutely allergic at any justification, moral, political, environmental, anything about art, because they're all propaganda.
It's not a simple thing, you know, covering the landscape. It's not hiding it, you know. It's actually drawing attention to it. It was a thing about what you could and couldn't see.
What I like about projects in different locations, that people just fall upon it. They just see something and then they say, what is it? They don't come and look at art. They just come and look at something, and by the way, it's art. When Christo was such a success, and it also gave me the courage to start my own business, because I thought if I can organize the wrapping of a coastline, I can probably run a small business on my own.
December '69, you wrote to Christo saying, I've resigned my job, I'm starting my own business, thank you.
Well, they in fact were instrumental in giving me courage. And I thought, well, Christo shouldn't be one-off. Let's see if we can do some more.
I asked around America and Europe among my friends and gallery people who would be likely people that I should bring to Australia next, and on everybody's short list there was Gilbert and George.
We always remember being invited by John to show in Australia, and we were very, very impressed. We were comparatively unknown artists.
I remember John Calder told us that Christo told him about us.
We were aware that it was an ongoing project of John's, and that he was dedicated to the idea of doing something special in his life in Australia, for Australia. As we were living in the East End of London, there were 3 huge hostels for men, 1 for women. People, the older ones, have been, of course, damaged by the First World War. The vast majority damaged by the Second World War. And then amongst all this detritus of human existence, we found a small gramophone record, which had the title Underneath the Arches. And we took the gramophone record home, and then we found a way of getting a wind-up gramophone to play it. And we were amazed that the words were exactly like life was then and like life is now. And we're still impressed by that. And that's the singing sculpture that we took to Sydney and then in Melbourne. And the words are, the Ritz I never sigh for, the Carlton they can keep. There's only one place that I know, and that is where I sleep. Underneath the arches, I dream my dreams away. Underneath the arches, on cobblestones we lay. Every night you'll find me, tired out and warm, happy when the daylight comes creeping, heralding the dawn.
Sleeping when it's raining, and sleeping when it's fine. Nice traveling mile. Christmas is my pillow, no matter where I stay. Underneath the arches, I dream away.
The idea is because we didn't have anything, and we still wanted to be arty. So we made ourselves the living sculpture. That with humanity, with human, what you call, not a marble one, not a bronze one, but one that has feelings.
And I can remember exactly what it was like and pretty much where I sat. I had my back to the big drawing that was on the wall, the wallpaper, and it was absolutely magical. I can't emphasize too strongly how perfectly they performed. They never flinched, they never blinked, they never came out of character.
I spent most days just watching them, even though I should have been working.
along with thousands of people. And probably nobody quite realised that Gilbert and George's main intention was kind of class war. They were deliberately wearing ill-fitting, very lower middle-class suits, trying to look respectable. Respectability versus illicit things and strange things, invading the hallowed halls of high art. As a curator here at the Art Gallery, it was my sort of official duty to show them the sights and the history, Mrs. Macquarie's chair, and the geology, interesting little sandstone cliffs projecting out into the beautiful harbour, showing them the sights, showing them the characteristics of Sydney.
They bless the fleet once a year.
I don't think the public, or even I, realised it was queer art, although later on I heard that at parties, out of hours, they were dancing with each other.
Oh, there we are.
It means a lot to us because it made us what we are, don't you think, George?
We came out of the singing sculpture.
This was the most important part, when we made ourselves the artwork.
Christo and Jean-Claude on the one hand with Rap Coast, Gilbert and George on the other with Underneath the Arches. Those are the moments that started to introduce a different kind of public artwork where a different kind of audience, or different audiences in the plural, are being created. It's an audience which is prepared to see anything. They don't demand that they should be in particular genres or particular materials. They understand that the idea and the artistic work can be pretty much anything, and that they are notice, that they have to step up to that.
We birthed, I think, at what is now Barangaroo. And a few days after we arrived, we were on a tram in Elizabeth Street. And it was a pretty full tram. And we were standing, and we were speaking in Hungarian. And an elderly man with a hat and a waistcoat turned to my mother and said something.
Why don't you go back to your own bloody country? Bloody Dagos.
And my mother didn't understand and said, I beg your pardon, sir. And said, you bloody refos, you're in Australia now, speak the King's English.
Don't want to speak English. That's all I do. Yabba, yabba, yabba.
I do remember that, but luckily Australia changed a lot since then. There are a lot of refos now in Australia.
276, take one.
Something like They're a Weird Mob was a film which showed us the possibilities of what we could actually do in this country, and indeed why are we allowing other people to do it.
I said, chuck 'em in the street!
And perhaps Caldor projects are a bit the same. When others can come to Australia and do these groundbreaking projects, people think, hey, I can do that, or I can have a go at that.
In 1991, I was invited to be in an exhibition for really kind of site-specific art. In the center of this town was a Baroque Schloss, and when I looked at this Schloss, I thought, oh, you know, this looks like a place Louis XIV, Louis XIV could live. And I thought, you know, if Louis XIV lived there, maybe one day he would wake up. And I thought about my white terrier. It was a wooden model. I just made this for my Made in Heaven series of work, and I thought, you know, maybe he'd want to see that model enlarged, but to see it made out of 20,000 live growing flowers. And I wanted to rebuild the piece, and John Caldor came along and said, you know, Jeff, I would like to do this.
When Jeff Koons did Puppy in 1995, I was at the MCA. I was the head of education, so I had an engagement with the project. It was a fantastic undertaking for what was a really very new museum. because the one in Germany had fallen over and the one in Sydney became the prototype. All the engineering, all of the complex work that was done with the sources of water, all of the research into the flowers, everything, all of that was the basis of the one that became famous at Bilbao, but it was done right here in Sydney.
When I was asked to do it, I said, I'd love to, but there's no rule book for designing dogs. So I did some concept design purely from photographs. And I actually designed it to fit in 11 shipping containers so I could travel the world. Having the engineering knowledge allows you to design the skeleton. The architect designs the skin, the engineer designed all the bones. About 85,000 plants, 100 tonnes of soil. All the flowers are made up in the Blue Mountains to bloom on a certain day in November. So we'd go up and have a look at how all the flowers were growing. Hello, Jeff. My name's Douglas Knox. I'm a consulting engineer for the project. We're looking forward to meeting you over the next few months. We used to give him regular updates via video link and send drawings and images, some photos. Jeff didn't come out to Australia until about 2 or 3 days before the opening. I used to have morning tea or lunch with all the workers, but he'd go back to his hotel. So I always quite liked working with people that are physically working on the site. In the construction, we had fabricators and riggers install the structural work, and then a lot of the art students and horticultural students came from Sydney Uni or college, and they were really fantastic. They really enjoyed it, and I think one student put some marijuana in the top of the head, and we saw it one day from level 5 or level 6.
There was a tall plant growing between his ears out of all the flowers. So I asked one of the attendants, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, John, you don't want to know." And I said, "No, come on, I need to know." He said, "Well, that's a marijuana plant." And I thought it was quite funny, quite innocent. He got so upset. He said the puppy is about love, about purity. You know, he rang me up every hour. "Has it gone yet? Has it gone yet?"
Opinions were divided about it. Some people said it was silly. Of course it was silly. It was manifestly and enormously silly, but it was so gorgeous and so much fun. And it sat in such a discrepant scale against the grand, pompous Maritime Services building. Oh, I loved it to bits.
Well, I think all of us live in communities, and those communities gain identity through shared experience. If you put a great work of art in the centre of a city and it sits there for a while, it becomes a talking point, it becomes a point of reference, it becomes a point where people gauge their own responses and reactions, both to it and to each other, and it becomes a memory.
I suppose I do think that John has changed Sydney by adding stories to it. So Little Bay is one thing, but the Wrapped Coast is also part of the history of the city. And Puppy has changed the MCA forecourt forever. And the other part of the public, I guess, in public art projects is that they're always free. Whether it's John or his partners or all sorts of folk coming in, they're staged without charge.
You have your own textile business company. How much do you blend your love of art with the business practicalities?
In business, you have to sell, you have to make a profit to continue to succeed. It has to be on a business-like basis. I have never attempted to put art on a business-like basis. I have only spent money whether collecting or art projects.
Well, in 1970, John Calder started up a textile company with $6,000 and a lot of determination. Today, he sells 15 million metres of fabric a year in 46 countries.
He's not primarily a collector, and Caldor projects are not really about a collection. If John had to buy everything that he showed, he'd need billions of dollars. In fact, because it's a public art project, he does the opposite. He goes looking for sponsors. He goes looking for people who are going to put in to help support this thing, which is of general value.
Well, as Calder prepares to hand the business over to his children, he says the biggest challenge is keeping ahead of the ever-increasing pace of change.
It's going to be very hard. My father's success has been very much based on his design sense and his taste of colour, and he's very much a creative person, an artist first, and I think a businessman second. I think I'm more a businessman first and an artist quite a long way second.
I think as John has withdrawn from the world of business, which he was deeply involved in, he has had more time to give to this. And I think he's very glad to have more time to give to this. And he's been more and more ambitious about what he can do with that time.
I'm kind of interested to stage artistic experiences that aren't necessarily about something. We don't need everything to be fully transparent politically or socially or in other ways for it to make an impact. And I had a piece that was like an experimental school that was inside of an exhibition called Schema for a School, which it's really marked by three things. One, you make a soup in the space every day together. Two, you have different exercises that attempt to get away from just reading and writing and looking at printed things. And the third thing is it's set up differently each day. And so it has this kind of constantly transforming nature. And you don't just entertain this like top part of your head. You kind of do things with the body. With this obesity of understanding has come this idea that if we can just know more, we can correctly judge the situation, someone's intentions, like the whole thing can be fully transparent, you know? This is a kind of misconception at a very basic level, like psychologically, about how human beings work. So I see that as a wrong path, kind of a dead end, let's say.
Hello?
Hi, Michael. I'm Michael.
Oh, hi. Hi, Anthony. Hi, Nick. I'm good.
Michael, I know how you like our wildlife, so I thought I'd give you an introduction to what I was woken up with.
Oh, is that okay? Is that a...
Seriously now, Michael, we really have to fairly well narrow down what goes into the boxes, because the gallery has to build display cases.
And also, weren't you also going to furnish me with a list of things as well?
Yeah, we will make a selection, but it would be helpful if we had an overarching idea of yours.
Yeah, I think it should be playful as well. So if the spectator goes and think, oh, not another box full of information. I did actually quite like the puppy in a box, but just by itself. And we just have a little box that the puppy sits in.
Like you want to make a kennel.
Yeah, basically.
A dog
little
house.
Kennel that would mimic archive box, but yeah.
But if we can make a small room for Koons, can we make a bigger room for Christo? Mike?
But also, Christo being a socialist, he wouldn't like to have a bigger box to all the other artists.
I hate to disappoint you. He's no socialist. Okay, what else do we have?
He will be. Assad Raza, does he know what you're doing, or?
No, we don't
He
know.
might, we don't.
We don't.
We're talking to him tomorrow.
And we're still going to give him a box. We won't give him a box, though.
Oh, yeah, we'll give him a box. He's got a box.
He's 34. He's the last one.
Yeah, we've just got in here a note to check if you'd had any thoughts about the title, Michael. This is something we're still playing around with a lot in Sydney, and
Yeah, I like John's title. I haven't had.
What's my title?
It's something to do with sandwiches. It started with a
Oh,
stale
yeah, it
sandwich.
started with a stale sandwich. Yeah, but
Oh, you don't like that one, Nick.
I-
Oh, you said, oh, that one.
I love it, but you know, it's too. I think the gallery would get indigestion. Have a sleep on it.
I won't sleep tonight. I've got a cold, so you know, I'm not. You say you've got to keep me alive between now and September, John.
We will.
We'll do our best.
I hope so.
Bye, Michael. Good night.
Take care,
Sleep
everybody.
well.
Bye.
Bye.
There's a bit of a spanner in the works with the doghouse.
So when we started talking to Michael Landy, did he come up with the box idea straight away?
Well, the idea was not to have a very standard retrospective.
Yeah,
That's
no, we
why.
didn't want to show the archives in a way that had already been done before.
Many ways before.
Yeah. I really love the fact that Michael has made this a journey, which is also the journey of
Well,
the
it's
project.
50 years, darling. It's
Yeah.
50 years.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't like retrospective and I don't like looking back. So that's why also we should try it as if it was all present somehow.
But
You
I
know,
think Michael's rendition will make it like that it is
like, as in
present.
it's all now, all happening now.
I think Michael will really make it have its currency as well.
The boxes are becoming less and less.
Are they?
Well, I think there's a few that won't be boxes, which is quite fun.
Like it's changing all the time? Michael's proposal or Michael's
Not,
idea?
no,
Not
it's just being
dramatic.
refined. It's
But
not
refined, that's a good
Yeah.
word. Because you were saying like you wanted to think about the audience's experience of this exhibition,
Yes.
and these are these special
boxes,
of
Yes.
archive, and
Yes.
they're like time machines or in my mind.
They're
I don't actually know
all
much
right.
about
Time machines is as good a way of putting it. But,
what's the other word for things like that.
well, they're sort of reawakening memories.
I wanted to make a kind of reverse exhibition. So, so after this 50th anniversary, how do you only see the audience and not the
Say that slowly.
Sorry.
I like the word reverse exhibition.
reverse exhibition? So
Yeah.
how do you only see the audience's experience and not the artwork? So all
Yeah.
you're seeing
Yeah,
is the
absolutely.
remnant. You're seeing the effect of the
No,
artwork.
I love that. So reverse.
Reverse, I'll write it. Somehow
Exhibition.
to create a reverse exhibition.
So far, so good.
That's lucky. So, I had a few thoughts. Like my first thought was, how do we erase all the artwork? But then I was thinking, wouldn't it be amazing? And actually, it came out of a conversation with T. Uglo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know him.
Yeah, her.
Sorry, I knew him.
Yes, T. I was talking about these ideas, like how do you make things disappear?
Yeah.
And how do we make people's presence in the gallery felt and known and become in perpetuity forever? And so T said what you can actually do is people can actually write their names in space.
In space.
In space. Around where they are, like this.
How can they?
I think with this.
And they write their name.
They write, or their name. I think their name because it connects to
So
my
they
name.
walk around.
They walk around at some
They stand-
point, they write their name like this.
Yeah, go on.
And then they do that for the duration of the exhibition.
Yes.
And then at the end of the exhibition, forever, if you go in with your phone, you look around and you see everyone's names and you also see the space where the artworks were. So you can...
That would be amazing.
So you walk around, so you look into an empty room, and that's why it would be amazing if it was the empty room. there.
I don't understand, because in reality, that space will never be empty.
Well, I would like it to be empty for a week, so people can experience it. Or a day. But it doesn't matter because it's a layer of archive, like, even in the future, John, when you've got your collection back in there, people can still go in and experience the shadow. It's like the reverse shadow.
No, I absolutely think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But how do you, thousands of people come and watch?
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds, hopefully. I can walk in there, go, hello, Cloud, and then I can see all the names without the boxes. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So how can we progress it?
We need to talk to T.
Well, shall I ring him?
Her. Not now.
Why?
John Caldor has been interested for a long time in big artists and big names. So he's interested in the noteworthy, the extraordinary, but the noteworthy as well.
This is a very new experiment here in Caldor project because performance art is such a difficult and such an incredible, powerful form of art. It can transform you, it can transform the viewer, but also performer.
I was one of the facilitators. I think there were 54 facilitators, and we were kind of leading people through the work. They were very mindful and very meditative. There was slow walking. There was a platform where you just stand on a platform, looking at a color. The work just slowed people down, and it slowed us down.
As we were walking up and down silently, it was a very, very beautiful experience. These projects are not passive projects. They're projects which demand that you actually participate in them. And Marina's was very much a participatory work, even though you were doing it on your own.
You were invited to go inside the work and become one of the performers in it. And that was wonderful. I mean, I still think one of the most marvelous 10 minutes of my life is sort of lying down and just being asked to do nothing.
Marina does talk about how this idea of leaving your mobile phone, leaving everything behind and focusing on a very immediate and mundane task will take you into a different kind of space. I tried to count the rice and lentils during that 6 hours that I was in there. My ears sort of changed from being able to hear ambient noise through these kind of noise-cancelling headphones to it just becoming a sort of
It's a digest and a hybrid of lots of different techniques, which is fine. It's done impeccably, but I like the older, more abrasive work.
I learned that actually the only way to understand your body and your mind is to take risk and to do things you don't like. But you do things that is unknown, that you're afraid of, that you don't like, that you really think, I can't do it, and you do it, that's where change comes. I'm staging these kind of situations in the front of the public, which I voluntarily go through that situation. And I'm using energy of the public to do that. And the moment I did it, and I come to the other side of the fear, and I get liberate myself from the fear.
There was a group of artists that were invited to live in a space above the exhibition. One part of the residency that was difficult was that it was very public. So Marina did ask us to, instead of, a lot of us were sitting in our computers doing research about performances we might work on or sort of developing our practice, looking quite internally, and she really made us pull ourselves out of that. So she actually said to us, what are you doing? Use your bodies, move yourself, come up with an idea where you're just experimenting with your body. And that was very uncomfortable for us because the audience that were coming from downstairs could come upstairs and witness us essentially experimenting with performance.
I kind of knew going into the residency that I wanted to make the work dead tongue, but I was also kind of questioning the necessity of music in my work because I've been making a lot of language-based music works in my traditional language in Bidjara. I had a tutorial with Marina, and that was sort of my question to her. And Marina was like, sort of get rid of the music. The language is beautiful and simple enough. And so it was good to have that feedback. So it's kind of about the sort of stifling of language, the subjugation of identity. but also the sort of history and the ability for language and culture to continue to survive and re-emerge and reconfigure itself in new and dynamic ways.
A lot of artists come to Australia, particularly the earlier ones, and because they've come so far, they all think it's impossible, to come to Australia. But having come, they do the trips to Central Australia and travel quite widely. And I know with Marina, she did that when she came here in '79. And she always claims that that influenced her work. I think a lot of people were quite surprised that international distinguished creative people were so taken by Indigenous culture here. I think we're all a bit guilty, including myself. When I was young, I never took any notice of, well, I'd never seen an Aborigine when I was a child. They weren't lurking around the North Shore in Sydney, I can tell you that. Although we all had Aboriginal place names, which was sort of rather curious, but I'd never seen an Aborigine. And when people started to talk about their culture, oh, really, what's that, Now I feel quite ashamed of that point of view.
So the Garden Palace was Sydney's international exhibition, so the first kind of time that Australia announced itself to the world and tried to engage on a world stage. And interestingly enough, Aboriginal material was heavily included and exhibited. And so it's at that building that's destroyed through the fire of 1882 that we lose that material, and Sydney in a way sort of starts reformulating a new identity.
Remembering that fire was a very important part of this landscape has become an important metaphor for the project. And so in some ways it was to sort of also think about what these collections were and the fact that there was ancestral remains were destroyed here. And that is a really difficult story to tell. Gadigal people didn't want everyone else's bones and ancestors put here to be destroyed. But now this landscape has bones and ancestors from right across the southeast and their objects, that have been incinerated on this site. So those bones are here and that skin is still here and we need to honour it. I went to try and find material in the Australian Museum from where my family is from, which is Wiradjuri and Kamilaroi. I went into the museum and asked to see some of the collections, some of the objects, as part of just research, trying to find and understand my identity and visual cultural history. And I remember that there wasn't much. It had always traumatised me, that experience of walking into, the oldest institution in Australia. It was full of extraordinary objects from all around the world, but nothing there that represented me or my family. It was really Uncle Stan who sort of kind of changed everything for me. And I was sitting at his house down in Narrandera, Auntie Bet, having a cup of tea, and we were yarning about the project, and I was showing him photos of the Garden Palace burning and talking to him about the loss. And he sort of reminded me, as he always does, to always trying to teach me language, that the word for fire in Wiradjuri was ween. And I was like, oh yeah, thanks, that's great. And then he said, and the Wiradjuri word for enlighten is weena. And that was just adding a na to the end of the word. And I was like, oh, do you mean turning the lights on? And he was like, no, I mean lighting up your brain, thinking. And then he said, and the word for remember is winanaigunana. So he started then just to give me this list and list and list of words, Wiradjuri words, all starting with win, so all starting with fire, that were connected to how we think and how we remember. And it was in that moment that I, perhaps for the first time, but I don't know, but I got a true sense of having a Wiradjuri worldview. And I started seeing that fire as a way of remembering.
Noel Pearson talks about this now. He talks about the three narratives of the country: the oldest continuous culture on the planet, the British colonial project, and the institutions that we've inherited, and also the most successful multicultural, multi-ethnic nation on the earth. That these three narratives feel like they're in competition when in fact they are together.
I think there was something really interesting taking John on that journey and being on that journey myself, but having him as a companion through that story was really special. And we sort of talked about how that Aboriginal worldview of thinking about history and trying not to forget things and being really aware of what's gone before is a really sort of important position to take.
Jonathan really opened my eyes to a very different Australia, an Australia that most Australians have very little knowledge about and should know more about.
I was looking at the extraordinary beauty of the ruins, but John, of course, sharply reminded me that for someone who'd lived through the war and had seen that sort of devastation and had fled that devastation, it's not just a beautiful thing. There's a whole bunch of other issues going on there. And we marked that perimeter of the building with 15,000 shields that were representing communities from across the southeast, the communities that experienced the most loss.
The shields was the last idea that Jonathan came up with, and it's the best. The shields which were lost in the fire. And it's a very poetic, very artistic way of bringing the two together, the footprint of the building and the loss of the Aboriginal shields, which the project is really about.
In the centre of the building, we inserted a native meadow that actually sat underneath the dome of the building. And so, of course, the dome of the building representing empire, a kind of iconic imperial architectural feature. I guess in some ways the Christo work was that notion of sort of concealing landscape. And I guess in some strange ways, Barangal Jara was named after skin and bones, and it was that idea of revealing the skin and bones of our landscape. So in many ways, I guess it's almost like we're peeling off that layer to reveal those histories that are sitting underneath the surface. And sometimes it does feel like Australia has been wrapped up in someone else's story. And Barangal Jara was really about trying to just wake up that landscape, because although Barangal Jara was an extraordinary special project, every square inch of this country has a story to tell.
I think it's so interesting comparing that and Christo's work. Like, they're just stunning cultural kind of bookends, or and they say a small thing about our changing understanding of where we are. You know, and it is just, it's so hard not to see that Christo work now through what it actually physically was, which was covering the land with whiteness.
But wonderful illustration of how John himself has changed in that period, and the extent to which he understands the place that he's come to live in for so long.
What I love about art projects is that they can lift up that history, and in the process of that, lift up and expose the soul to, in this case, a healing light.
I think what you need to talk about is how much energy it gives you. And I think that's true of every work of art in every form. If you go to it and you come away with more energy than you brought to it, then it's really, really worked.
What's that, a phone?
So this is a phone. It's just an Android phone. You can see. And if you want us to try, we've done a little version so you guys can record your names in this space.
Yeah.
And then listen to it back. So, I just always wanted to
Have you
put
seen that?
John in headphones.
No, I haven't seen that because I literally only just pitched it to T, and then she's done this.
Okay, John.
So what do I do with this?
So you need to press record and then say your name.
It says listening.
Yeah.
John Caldor.
Okay. So then we've got John's marked in space. So then if John leaves, we'll put the name there
So
in
how
your
do you...
handwriting.
Oh.
And then the sound is very specific, so you can then walk around your name. So you can walk around it as a physical, as a non-physical object.
But let me just try and understand. Visitors come into the gallery.
Yeah.
Do they need a phone to record?
They will need a phone. Yeah, I mean, we could either have devices or people ideally would be able to use their own name.
Emily. So if John says John here, then he walks away. It's still got John there. And then when someone else walks in...
Wow.
It worked.
We'll take a wow. That's good, right?
Yeah.
When someone else walks in, they can hear your name up there and they walk around, they can hear you saying John. And the closer they get, the louder it gets to John, and it stays there. Well, I mean, it's not there, it's in the virtual
John,
world.
This will make more sense to you if you stand up. So you put the headphones on.
Is there a left and a right?
No, it doesn't matter. It should be all right. And you record. Just say your name. Record and say your name.
John.
Oh, sorry.
John. It says Emily.
Oh, it's saying Emily to you. That's because
Oh,
Emily's
it
over
says
here.
no, John.
Yeah, so and you should be able to walk around it. Can you feel how you can walk around the name?
Yes.
And can you see where the name is? Just so you can go
walk
over to
towards
Emily's.
Emily.
Can you find her wherever she left her name? There you go. So there's Emily. And that would say Emily. And then if you imagine that this is like hundreds of people, not just a few people.
Emily.
It becomes this, yes.
This kind of the nice
But
part is when
it's the way it moves around the
Fantastic.
space, around.
So it will be like a chant, like you said.
It will be like a beautiful chant that goes louder and louder as the exhibition
And
accumulates.
becomes hard. You would be walking through basically a whisper of everyone in that space saying their name.
But hang on.
Okay.
Emily goes to the gallery. Where does she record
You need
that?
to record your name.
Oh,
So you come into the space.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that
wherever I like.
Agatha's coming into the space.
Yeah.
Agatha.
She just chooses wherever she wants to say her name. So eventually you come in, say you're coming into a space.
Yeah.
And you can imagine seeing a room full of this cloud of names at different heights.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And as you walk, and if you've removed the art from that, you'll actually have these holes where the
Yeah.
art was,
That's
where the
why we
exhibition
want to
was.
empty the gallery, John, at the end.
Because no one will have been able to stand there and put their name there.
I mean, this could be fantastic.
Yes.
It's very clever. It's really very, very clever.
I think there's something so pleasurable in finding art confounding and confusing and wrestling with what you're looking at. So the more things that we can put in our world that don't make sense to everyone, the better, that aren't just there to make sense and be consumed.
The true meaning of philanthropy is for the people, for the love of the people. And the sense that John goes, boom, for 50 years has gone, here's something is an act of love, an act of care for community and for society. And that the artists are given the invitation to go, what do you need to say?
It's taught me a lot, and I've got a long way to go. Got a long way to go learning about everything. I mean, life's learning, isn't it? You learn something every day, if you're lucky.
Well, how does it look without the headphones? Can I look again?
Yeah, without the headphones, it's just lots of people talking.
I don't see the names. I hear that.
But you need to move around, then you'll see them. Agatha.
John.
Emily.
John. John Caldor.
And you know, you would have like, I mean, you literally have half a box or something.
Oh, that's much
just
better.
a number on. That's why I'm the artist, John.